How I Manifested $250,000 Using Affirmations in 90 Days. The creative process begins with an idea, and its cycle runs its course as a feeling and ends in a volition to act. Neville. This is a story of consciousness versus unconsciousness. To be honest, I was one of those extremely unsuccessful people. I had never succeeded in anything, and I had just dropped out of college for the second time. At the age of 21, I knew I had a huge problem on my hands, and it all started with my mind and how it had been conditioned when I was young. Physically, I remember waking up in the morning and the very first things I would think about were how much of a failure I was, how I dropped out of school with no plan, how I had a terrible work ethic, and no set of high-paying skills. I wasn't even driven to succeed. When I looked at my past, there was nothing I could point to that suggested I am successful. This was my daily habit. As soon as I opened my eyes from sleep, I entered a state of anxiety, depression, and overwhelming helplessness. To top it all off, I lived with a stepdad who was a narcissist with OCD and anger issues. In short, I hated my life and felt trapped in my own mind and in my parents' house. I didn't know who to ask for help. I had no money, no support, and no solutions. My health was also very poor, so I spent most of my days in physical pain, often curled up in the fetal position due to my paralyzed nervous system from depression. I had a real challenge in life, and a college degree wasn't going to help much. The only light I had in the darkness that I could truly rely on was my meditation practice and my keen interest in metaphysical studies. I knew how to meditate and had a consistent practice, but I had never tried to use this inner power to solve my external problems. They say the first and last 5 minutes of the day are the most important because that is when your mind is most susceptible to ideas, feelings, and images. That is essentially where your life is created by you. If you don't control it, the circumstances of the world will control it for you. So every morning, I unconsciously bathed my mind in these unwanted ideas, and my life reflected these ideas back to me with mathematical precision. I recognized that this was the root of all my problems. My mind created my attitude, and that attitude shaped my life. Everything from my financial brokenness, depression, and chronic physical pain were encoded in my mind. And I woke up in it every day, completely immersed and blind to any other possibility. This cycle repeated itself all my life until one day I came across a set of teachings for remolding your life by a grandmaster yogi named Paramahansa Yogananda. This was the very first book I read on the law of attraction. I had heard the term before, but I had never studied it, nor had I intentionally put it into practice. Now I had a calling. I had to try this out. I had nothing to lose but my failure consciousness. The book was brief but very authoritative, with clear instructions on how to apply the system to change your consciousness. He said the only way to change and mold your life is to change your consciousness. That's the only way. He said that man's ignorance of this law had robbed humanity of its God-given power, which is the power of our mind to create prosperity, health, and miracles. He refers to the mind as the magic factory. You can work in this factory to produce magical outcomes that seem like miracles, but they're actually just thought vibrations that condense or freeze into matter, appearing as miraculous circumstances, which I think is awesome. I didn't know that the tiniest book in the world was about to change my life forever. I immediately put the exercises into action after reading it. Every morning, immediately upon waking, I would read the affirmations for material success, and every night, right before going to sleep, I would read them again as instructed. The book said to sit upright while practicing the affirmations. But I didn't do that. I laid in bed in the same position I would for sleep, read the affirmations a few times, and then fell asleep. I read them out loud, then softly, and then repeated them mentally without moving my lips. Initially, I was very bad at this and lazy about it. Still hugely skeptical, with no sense of faith or trust in the process, I persevered. As time went by, I got better at doing the exercises. I paid more attention, affirmed with greater conviction, and had a little more faith each time. Then I read the book again and fine-tuned my developing skills to the instructions. I began to focus on the point between the eyebrows, which the author said was the point for concentration and willpower. I noticed that as I focused there calmly, it amplified my mental power, leading me to have greater concentration and a stronger feeling of faith. The author mentions that knowing how to use the mind to produce miracles is a skill that can be acquired. Many people try to change their minds but fail to change their world, and they go on to believe that thoughts have no power. But it's their minds that are weak and their attention scattered. Just like a weak muscle can be trained, get stronger, and visibly grow after exercises, the mind can grow more powerful through training. Soon, I began to notice that a battle had started within my mind, between the old patterns of failure consciousness and these new ideas of absolute success, wealth, and joy. As I was saying the affirmations with conviction, thoughts of doubt and poverty would suddenly creep up out of nowhere. I'd notice them and increase the intensity of my attention on the ideas of success. Then thoughts of failure would cease, and I'd continue this stream of attention toward success consciousness produced by the affirmations. Over time, this created a lot of joy in my heart and made me feel like I was going to win this battle over failure consciousness. Slowly at first, but steadily, and later faster, my mental attitude began to completely change. I started to think of ways to start my own business. I'd search the internet for hours on end and implement the ideas I could. I changed my daily routine to include going to the library, taking my lunch, and researching various business models I could start with little money. As I searched, I had so much conviction that something, somehow, would come of these actions. You can instill any trend in your consciousness right now, provided you inject a strong thought in your mind. Then your actions and whole being will obey that thought. A few unusual things started to happen. A yoga student of mine, after a class, asked me if I'd come to her house and give her spiritual counseling. Something like this had never happened before the affirmations, and she ended up compensating me for my time, even though I had told her she didn't have to. Another event was that my mom brought various Persian turquoises from Iran. They were sent by her high school friend who was in the business of mining Persian turquoise. Their main customer was China, but they wanted to work with the US and due to sanctions, it was difficult. She said if I could find a buyer, we could go into business. If not, I could keep the stones. So I kept the stones as gifts, but later found out that Persian turquoise is the highest valued and most sought after turquoise in the world, also known to be the most beautiful. The sanctions had actually caused their value to rise. I found that 5 of those stones were worth around $500 to $900 each. And there were a total of 40 cheaper stones, which continue to rise in value every year. The affirmation included sentences like, all the wealth of this earth, all the riches of the universe belong to me. I find it astounding that the wealth of the earth, which in this case were the Persian turquoises, were sent to me directly from the country of my birth, Iran, which happens to have the most valuable turquoise in the entire world. If this doesn't resemble the exact words from the affirmations, I don't know what does. Both these events seemed like a natural possession of wealth, which was the object of my newly found affirmation practice. Now I was in the flow. I began to love practicing my success affirmations every night and morning. Then, getting up and taking actions that resembled success to me intuitively. I had taken responsibility for my life and I felt confident. Um, you know, Doubt would show up at times when I looked at my bank account and the conditions of my life. Uh, but I kept going. I knew something was right around the corner. I kept experimenting with 2 to 3 businesses, implementing everything I had learned to the best of my ability. I just wanted to learn. I didn't care about failing. I had started a Shopify store and an Etsy store. Still, I hadn't made any progress when it came to money, but somehow I didn't care. I just had this attitude of trying until it worked. I fell in love with the process of research, implementing what I had learned, the struggles, and the problem solving I had to do. Fine. By this time, I still had $400 in my bank account, but my attitude had completely changed. I now had the attitude of a winner instead of a loser. All the while, in the back of my mind, I knew I only needed one product that was an absolute winner. That one viral product, once I found it, would change everything. Intuitively, I kept looking for that product to show up. I knew a golden product was right around the corner. I continued with my morning and night affirmations. By this time, I had far less resistance to the ideas of success and wealth. Every time I read the affirmations, I felt like I was smoothly flowing with the stream of consciousness being conveyed in them. I felt calm, centered, and absolutely certain that these words were true. Some days I'd wake up and the first thought that entered my mind was, my success is inevitable. I don't know how I will succeed, but I will succeed. I didn't consciously come up with these thoughts. They were just there. I woke up in them and my mind was saturated with these knowings. By now, I had gotten really good at doing these affirmations. I said them with conviction, full unwavering attention, and a natural feeling of faith. One night, after my affirmation practice, I entered a deep state of faith. I had absolutely no resistance to the idea of being wealthy. I was right there, completely bathed in it, at the center of my mind. Its belief had taken over my entire body and mind. I felt that I had merged with the consciousness of the affirmation, wealth, and success. In that state, I fell asleep. That night, I had a dream that I was running a business. I was so busy running a legitimate operation with employees and lots of customers. I woke up from the dream, and the very first thought that came to mind was, I am going to make $200,000. Again, I didn't come up with this number. It was just there. It came from my subconscious mind. I had nothing to do with generating it. It was a clear, authoritative intuition. Within a few seconds of waking up, once my conscious mind became awake, I thought to myself, how dare you think of these numbers? Where do you even get these numbers from? This was doubt creeping in, but it had no effect on my attitude. Yogananda says, the stronger magnet wins. By this time, I had made the magnet of success much stronger than failure in my mind. Within 1 week of this dream, I found the winning product. It was March of 2020, and I was at a friend's house. Somehow, I felt so relaxed and had this feeling of certainty that I was going to be rich. Although there were still no signs of riches in my pockets, I just knew it with all my heart. Even a friend of mine who was already wealthy said, I have a feeling you're going to be rich. I was browsing on Etsy, as I had gotten into the habit of doing. I had figured out a way to quickly find the highest search terms on Etsy on my own without paying for a software service. I saw that the term face mask was one of the most searched items on Etsy. I thought to myself, why the heck are people searching for face masks? I asked my mom to sew face masks for me, and I posted them on Etsy that day, The next day, I woke up to a few sales. Using my first face mask on March 18th. By the first week, I had a revenue of $14,000. And by April 14, Etsy had deposited $200,000 into my personal bank account. This was within 25 days of starting the business. By the end of the year, the business had generated $850,000 in revenue with $250,000 in profits after I paid all my people handsomely. Remember Yogananda's words, become rich and make others rich. Through the shift in my consciousness, I found myself doing things differently. These actions put me in the right place at the right time, and that was the gold I needed. I had created massive luck by changing my thoughts. People around me were jealous, and some of them thought I was a genius for spotting the opportunity at just the right moment. But only I knew that for the 3 months prior, I had been cooking up a magic sauce in my mind, which ultimately produced these results. This experience taught me so much about life and existence, more than I ever anticipated. I used to resist work, but now I felt like my work had set me free. I had all this money coming in, thousands of happy customers, articles written about my face masks all over BuzzFeed and the internet, and 20 employees who were happy with their income amidst COVID when everyone else was panicking about money. Seeing tens of thousands of good reviews with customers saying, it was the best face mask they had tried and how, beautiful the prints were, and seeing hundreds of pictures of people wearing my face masks that I had designed online. It was beautiful. It was glorious to see my mind produce prosperity that was being shipped all over America. To be honest, it was a spiritual experience in itself. I did make a mistake during this whole process, which I must share. After I made the $200,000, I stopped practicing my affirmations. Over time, my mind slowly returned to its old conditioning, and depression crept in after a year. I never earned that much money again. I believe that if I had maintained the consciousness that brought me that sudden and miraculous success, I would have continued to succeed in even more miraculous ways. A month ago, I started the practice again, this time focusing on health affirmations because I have back pain from an injury that I wish to heal. I don't care how long it'll take, it's better than doing nothing. So now I do health affirmations and then wealth affirmations because I just want to see what happens and where this creative process will take me next. I know for a fact that another miracle story is around the corner. So if you start the practice, just don't stop. You don't just go to the gym for 3 months, you go for the rest of your life. Otherwise, progress stops. Thank you for hearing my story. If it has been helpful to you, I am grateful for that.